you're just joining us, welcome to Montreal's Gilles Villeneuve circuit. It's half-time in the Formula One Championship, race 8 out of 16. It is the country's top sporting event, the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's join Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everybody. Well, we're celebrating Father's Day today, appropriately on the 25th anniversary of the victory here of Jacques Villeneuve's father, Gilles. The first race on this Ile de Notre Dame circuit back in 1978 that was subsequently named after Gilles Villeneuve. No doubt, though, today, who needs the race win the most? This guy, Ralf Schumacher. Hasn't won for 22 Grand Prix now. You're going back to Malaysia 2002. However, he has been on pole for the last two races, Monaco and here. He's yet to hit the podium so far this season. I spoke to him last night. How hungry are you to win this race? I said, and he seemed to me to have a very, very strong desire to do it, particularly having seen his teammate Montoya win in Monaco 2 weeks ago when Ralf himself was on pole position. He missed out. He wants to win. Montoya himself, he's got a taste for it now. That Monaco victory has helped to push him towards the championship fight. He's not yet in it, though. Currently 23 points behind top of the table, Kimi Raikkonen. A win today, especially with Raikkonen starting from the back of the grid after a very poor qualifying yesterday. A win today for Montoya would push him towards the championship fight. And what about Michael Schumacher? Well, he thought this was going to be his weekend on Friday and Saturday morning when it was raining here very heavily in Montreal. The Bridgestone tyres had an advantage of at least 2 seconds a lap over the Michelins. He thought the weekend was wide open for him, but then he got a nasty surprise yesterday in qualifying. On a dry circuit, Michelin is the tyre to have. Will that story be repeated here this afternoon? Certainly Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, Fernando Alonso, Mark Webber, David Coulthard, all hoping that it will be. Nevertheless, as we heard from Ross Brawn on the grid, Michael Schumacher will have one eye on the championship today. Starting third, knowing that Kimi Raikkonen has it all to do from the back of the grid, he'll be thinking about leaving Montreal this afternoon on top of the championship, amazingly, for the first time this season. And what a difference a year makes, Martin. Go back to last year. Michael was 33 points clear in the championship. He won here last year, 43 points clear when he went away, and it was all signed, sealed and delivered for him. 12 months on, he's really, really up against it, largely because of this tyre war situation.
Yes, I mean, it's great. The championship's absolutely wide open, and Raikkonen had 4 points at this time last year, and he's now got 48 points, so such a big turnaround is the reason why Michael is a bit behind. Still second in the championship, of course, quite well clear of Alonso, Barrichello, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher and Montoya, who are really squabbling around their very similar points. So Raikkonen will start from the pit lane. Michael has got to keep an eye on that, as you say. If Ralf Schumacher wants to win this race, he's got to deliver every lap all afternoon. So often with Ralf, we've seen him sprint off, drive well, and then kind of make a couple of scruffy errors, drop off the pace a little bit and lose the race. And Montoya will be trying to keep him honest. Montoya made me smile in the press conference after qualifying. The old psychological battle. He said, yeah, no problem. I told Ralf, he can do the poles, I'll do the race wins. And that is very much his mindset here.
Well, there are no rules in the Williams team, as we've established many times over the years. Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya are racing here today. No team orders into turn one. Both of them were saying yesterday afternoon, we're both smart enough, not stupid enough to take each other off. Possibly giving themselves a bit of a hostage to fortune, a rod for their own back if they do take each other off into turn one. The general feeling, though, Martin, with turn one here is that the first 2 or 3 rows tend to funnel through more or less in order off the line. The real action, as Jackie Stewart was saying to you on the grid, tends to happen from sort of the 4th row backwards as people kind of cannon into each other depending on how they got off the line.
Yes, because they're coming from further down the grid, so they've got a higher speed when they arrive into turn one. They're unsighted, and the pack tends to back up always a little bit faster than you expected, even though you allow for that as you head down there. And of course, it's quite a right turn heading into that first corner. So if you're on the outside, on the left-hand side of the track, although it's a left-hander, initially you are fully unsighted into that corner, and that's why we've seen so many incidents here. But now they've got half an acre of tarmac on the outside of the turn, where it used to be a gravel trap, a barrier, and the biggest tree I've never wanted to run into parked there. It's just an open space where at least they can escape to.
Off we go then on the formation lap. 2 Toyotas you saw there flashing through the screen, both in the top 10. Their best qualifying performance of the season. The 2 McLarens struggling a little bit. David Coulthard 11th. Raikkonen starting from the pit lane, as we said, their worst qualifying performance as a team of the season.
I tell you what'll be interesting, depending on just how well he gets away, how early they release him. I'm assuming they release Raikkonen the moment that the last car crosses the line, and that depends how they get away. But it's a straight run down the pit lane exit, and you feed into turn 2, not into turn 1. So actually Raikkonen could be right in the hunt, right with him. Just depends on how quickly they release him out of the lane. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, I'm sure that's something Ron Dennis and his crew will be discussing with the race director, precisely what moment, because it could affect his race enormously, how quickly he can get onto the tail. We'll keep an eye on him, let you know where he is at the end of the first lap, particularly where he is in terms of time difference to the leaders. So just making our way around this beautiful circuit, set on an island. It's a park for most of the year. They use it for this race and also for one of the Champ Car races later in the year. Other than that, it's a place people come to walk their dogs, possibly sail their model boats in the lake here, surrounded by the St. Lawrence Seaway, about 4 or 5 miles from downtown Montreal, which certainly is right up there with Melbourne and Budapest amongst all the drivers and people in Formula One as the favourite venue for the Grand Prix. It really is a lively old town. There's Kimi Raikkonen then. He will be, you can see the refueler there is ready. Once the cars go, he's able to fuel that thing up and go all the way probably to about lap 45 to 50 of this Grand Prix, which is more fuel than anybody obviously who was qualifying yesterday they would have wanted to carry, because the weight penalty you carry with so much fuel, it gives away a lot of time to other people. So it's always a balancing act. How much fuel can I carry without giving away grid slots?
Yes, of course he's at the back of the grid anyway, but what's interesting is they've not refueled it yet. I was forgetting that. Of course, we always assumed as soon as this green flag lap started, they can make any changes they want. They're out of park firmly, they can refuel it. But remember, the Jaguar of Weber in Austria, there was an aborted start, and it was deemed that therefore the race had not started. So the work they'd done in the pit lane was against the regulations. So you've got a second guess if it's a real start or not. A really grey area, I have to say.
Well, he could have refueled it, but then if there was a restart, his car would be ineligible. That's the thing, that McLaren are not taking any gambles here. They're going to wait until the race has actually started, and then this car, whatever happens, is in the race. That's incontrovertible. Well, we've had 6 safety cars in the last 7 years here in Montreal. It's an eventful Grand Prix always, even in a dull Grand Prix season. And a safety car today would be manna from heaven, certainly for all the guys carrying fuel. That includes this man, Jacques Villeneuve. David Coulthard's heavy, we believe. Pitsoni is heavy, and Raikkonen certainly will be heavy as well. And
Ralph Furman has pitted, so the 2 back row sitters then are going to start from the pit lane. We think they just want to change the tyres on that, but again, they can't work on it. And they're just getting themselves ready. They're not actually doing anything on the car. They're just, in fact, the wheels are off. So they've decided to take the wheels off. They're not going to put them on until the race has started for real.
Okay, let's concentrate on the start now, because this is crucial into turn 1. 5 lights on, they're off now. They go away so slowly, but they're launching themselves towards the first corner. Watch Michael Schumacher attacking Montoya. Will he break deep? No, he doesn't. That was pretty clever by Montoya. He went round the outside of Michael Schumacher, didn't give any challenge whatsoever to his teammate Ralf Schumacher, who leads this Grand Prix. Alonso has got a good start. He's maintained position. And look at Webber attacking the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. But as they go through the S's and down towards the back chicane, at the front at least, it's the same order as they left the grid.
Yes, they were 3 or 4 wide there in turn 1, but I don't think anybody tripped over another car. So once again, exemplary driving from the 18 drivers that took the first corner together, and Raikkonen and Furman with no sight of them yet as to where they actually are at this time.
Looks like De Matter is attacking. He's made up some ground at the start. Ralf Schumacher leads. Montoya's second. Michael Schumacher's third. Alonso fourth. Rubens Barrichello is in 5th place. Then Mark Webber's 6th. Panis 7th for Toyota. 8th for Toyota De Matter. 9th is Trulli. 10th David Coulthard making a place up from the grid.
A Jaguar touched there. He tried to go up the inside. There was a Renault, and I think it was Coulthard were getting together. Pitsoni had tried to take advantage of that on the inside of the hairpin and tagged his nose, and off comes the front wing. He ran into the back of the Renault. I think Coulthard was on the outside of them.
So at the end of lap 1 then, Ralf Schumacher goes into turn 1 the fastest. They've got side-by-side battle going down the straight between Trulli and D'Amata. The Toyotas are certainly running quite light on fuel. That's the paddock gossip. They're probably going to be coming in around about lap 20, if not before. We're expecting Alonso probably around that sort of time, maybe slightly later. Ferraris, expect them in around lap 27 to 30, and the Williams is somewhere in between the Renaults and the Ferraris. And where is Kimi Raikkonen? He is up into 18th place. He's 13.5 seconds behind race leader Ralf Schumacher at the end of lap 1.
Yes, so Raikkonen 18th, Furman 19th. Pitzonia has pitted for a new front, and Rubens Barrichello has also lost his front wing. Clearly he's tagged that on somebody. That'll slow him down heavily. He will pit at the end of the lap. It'll cost about 12 seconds to change that, plus the time it takes to negotiate the pit lane. Not really any point in blocking another driver at this stage.
Well, I was going to say, where do you stand on that? Because clearly Webber's going to get him. He's not going to be able to... he's just holding him up, isn't he?
Yeah, it's... Anyway, I mean, he may say, well, look, if I save 2 or 3 seconds, maybe I will be in racing with this guy later on, so I'll take those 2 seconds now. So Barrichello has to...
Montoya's had an incident. Sorry to interrupt you, Martin, but you can see that Juan Montoya has lost about 5 places. He slipped down behind the Jaguar of Mark Webber. He's slotted in just in front of Panis, so one presumes he's had some sort of incident through the final chicane, possibly a spin, as Barrichello pits.
All happening then in the early stages of this Grand Prix as they're just touching. I did see Barrichello and Alonso very close company heading into the start of the second lap, so maybe they touched down into turn 1. Away goes Barrichello. It's a 14-second nose change, plus of course the time down the pit lane. And here I think you're going to see Pitzonia trying to take advantage of that and tagging the back of Jarno Trulli. Coulthard would pass Trulli at the end of that straight and now runs 8th, and this then is that, look, he spun. Montoya spun it out on the final corner, James. That's why he lost 4 places.
It's exactly what Jacques Villeneuve did on Friday qualifying. Here comes Trulli. He was tagged by Pitzonia, as we just saw, into the hairpin. Probably a puncture then for one of the rear tyres. He's put a new set of boots on. Didn't see them putting any fuel into the car. And Trulli going out.
Well, surely they fueled it while he was in. We were just looking at the front of the car, and we're hearing they did fuel the car. So he goes a lap down then because the leader's just gone past, and there you see the pit lane turning in and joining at turn 2, and he yields then to second place man Michael Schumacher. So Schumacher R first, Schumacher M second, Alonso third, Webber 4th, Montoya maintaining 5th, Panis, D'Amata, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Frentzen is 10th.
Yeah, Montoya's going to be kicking himself for that spin, because it's not only dropped him down to 5th place, he's got a lot of work to do now behind Alonso and Webber, but it's also given Michael Schumacher there in the Ferrari exactly what he needed. He can just stare at the back of his brother's car, almost certain that he's got more fuel in his Ferrari than the Williams has got in front of him, possibly by as much as 4 or 5, 6 laps. Who knows? We'll find out shortly. And the pendulum swinging a little bit towards Michael Schumacher. He's the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment, and 1.8 seconds behind his brother Ralf.
Raikkonen is up to 16th, just behind Jenson Button. He hasn't actually passed a car, it has to be said, Kimi Raikkonen. They've all pitted for noses, a punctured tyre, or fell off the road, or whatever. All 20 cars running at this time, and Ralf Schumacher leads. And Justin Wilson, as ever, a great start, and he's in P11.
That's astonishing. Justin Wilson qualified down in 18th place. Teammate Verstappen was 15th, and Verstappen is 13th now. Wilson up to 11th. So Minardi, having had a very torrid weekend off the track, challenging the other team owners to come up with some money to try and keep them in business. Well, on track, they're having a wonderful time today. Here's Montoya, though, attacking Mark Webber, taking up back 4th place from the Jaguar driver. That's a replay.
Yes, we didn't see the pass itself, but where we have it, is that Alonso, isn't it? I think that's Alonso slowing.
Well, Trulli rejoined with the other gang, didn't he? That's probably Alonso just gone through the frame. No, it's Trulli you can see coasting. Yeah. He rejoined from the pit lane around where Michael Schumacher was on the racetrack. So, yeah, that makes sense. So, obviously, a lot of incidents already. We're only 5 laps into this Grand Prix. Pitzonia, Trulli, Barrichello have all had incidents. Furman and Raikkonen have started from the pit lane. And currently Raikkonen 22.9 seconds behind the race leader. He's stuck behind Jenson Button. He can't get past him.
Down into the 1:16s then is Michael Schumacher. The lead was 1.4 seconds. Last time they crossed this start-finish line, they're approaching now. Over he goes for a 17.3 for Ralph and a 17.0 for Michael. 1.2 then the lead now. He's easily pulling him in. And there really is the great unknown this afternoon in terms of how your tyres and brakes going to cope with this, because they've virtually no data from dry running whatsoever.
No, the only people who've done any serious dry running are the 4 teams that take part in Friday morning testing as Trulli coasts around to try and get back to the pits. That's Renault, Jaguar, Jordan and Minardi. They got 2 hours of dry running on Friday morning. But apart from that, it started to rain shortly afterwards, and it really didn't let up until after free practice on Saturday. So really just the single lap qualifying and a brief warm-up yesterday. The only information that Ferrari, McLaren, Williams and the rest have on how their brakes will work today, how their tyres will grain, blister and generally wear over the course of the 3 stints that we're likely to see this afternoon. A 2-stop race in prospect, we think, for a few of the cars. Some of them might try and stretch it to a 1-stopper. And, well, Martin, cast your mind back 2 years. The battle between Ralf Schumacher and his brother Michael here decided in Ralph's favour on that occasion, winning here for Williams 2001 after a really close battle. Just like this, they were really nose to tail throughout the Grand Prix. What will happen this afternoon, I wonder? Michael
Schumacher was so close to that wall that he's hit before. Really just shows you how hard he's pushing to put his younger brother under pressure. The gap down to 0.9 of a second now, and they're 7 seconds clear of Alonso, Montoya and co, and Trulli then has managed to creep back into the pits.
Raikkonen at the moment is in 16th place, and he is losing 3 seconds a lap at the moment to the lead as he's got to get past the Button Fisichella battle in front of him as Trulli's in the pits. Let's hear from Ted.
I think it's a gear selection problem for Jarno Trulli. Executive Director of Engineering Pat Simmons looking over the front suspension, looking very carefully at the front right wheel hub. No, I think he's saying there's something wrong with it. No, now he's saying put the tyre back on. Maybe that's okay. They were standing by with a spare steering wheel, but that looks to be in place. Now they've still got a problem on that left front.
And the replay you're watching, as Ted's talking, I think, is from where he lost the carcass of the tyre early on, and that will be very hot. Good job he's got some gloves on, because a punctured tyre gets supremely hot, and that's why why the tread ends up falling away from the bead like that. But I think that was the earlier incident for Trulli. Wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't have a drivetrain problem. He took quite a punch in the rear wheel in the hairpin.
Well, not only that, but having lost the main carcass of the tyre out on the back of the lap, he had at least 1.5 miles to go to get back to the pits, and I can't imagine the car really enjoyed doing that journey without most of its right rear tyre.
No, as long as the carcass stays in a circle, it doesn't flail and break away the bodywork and the rear wing. But this then is the gap. Less than a second now, and in fact a little over half second by the looks of that one. And they're just way faster than anybody else, except for Montoya, who's 4th and recovering.
Just give you an idea then of the relative pace. At the front, the 2 Schumacher brothers lapping in the low 1:17 range. Alonso, he's in the mid 1:18 range. Montoya is closing him down. He's just 0.4 of a second behind the Renault driver. He's lapping in the mid-17s. Webber, he can't keep the pace at the moment. He's in the 1:19s, as are Panis, Mata and Coulthard, and the rest more or less the same from there. This is on board though with world champion Michael Schumacher, and no, look at this. This guy's just having such bad reliability problems. Heinz-Harald Frentzen once again had an engine failure on Friday, and now look at him.
I was looking at something else. Has he spun off, or did he have a mechanical failure or whatever? It looked like he binned it when I just caught a quick glance of it as I turned back to the screens. But Justin Wilson up to P10 now in the Ecclestone Minardi.
Perhaps you'd like to explain that reference, the Ecclestone Minardi.
Well, Paul said that, didn't he, on ITV? Didn't he say Bernie's helped him out or joined the team or something? And look, this is for 3rd place. Alonso just ahead of Montoya. Montoya with a lot of straight line speed here. Talking of straight line speeds, I've been looking on the computer, and Michael Schumacher must have dropped a little bit of wing off, because he is just about the fastest in all the speed traps. So if he does catch up with his brother, then he looks like he's got enough straight line speed to do something about it. This then is on board with Montoya into turn 5. You're looking at the back of Alonso, and nowhere to overtake really. If you get a good slingshot out of 7 down under the tunnel into the wide bridge, it's not really a tunnel, down into 8's a half a chance. but then the hairpin and the final corner are your best chances to get round somebody here. That is Villeneuve. He is P9, holding up Justin Wilson.
Yeah, Villeneuve's done well. They've all done well, these guys. Villeneuve started 14th on the grid. He's now 9th. Wilson started 18th on the grid. He's now 10th. So they've really made up some ground, as has Heidfeld there as well in the mix. Now, the straight line speed-wise, let's just talk about these two here. Yesterday in practice, and of course in qualifying rather, and of course they've not been allowed to change anything since then. Not 5 miles an hour is the difference between the BMW Williams of Montoya and the Renault of Fernando Alonso in a straight line. Montoya can do about 205 miles an hour down that back straightaway, and the Renault just nidges under 200 mile an hour.
So Kimi Räikkönen, the World Championship leader, still down in 15th, lapping, actually falling slightly away from Jenson Button and Giancarlo Fisichella, because he's very heavy on fuel, of course. He'll get a bit of dividend, a bit of payback later on in the race. This is the two Schumacher brothers then challenging for first and second places.
Yes, Michael now much closer to the race leader than he's been at any time during the Grand Prix. Looks like he's lining him up for a pass here. Neither of them really were able to get past each other 2 years ago. There was a little bit of side-by-side stuff. Certainly Ralph trying to get past Michael, but nothing really paid off. That race was decided through the pit stop strategy. That was decided in pit stops, that race. I'll tell you another man who's having a bit of a struggle with traffic this afternoon is David Coulthard. Had a terrific time. They're starting side by side here as Montoya attacks Alonso. We cut to see Trulli, and Montoya has made that pass stick. So that was a nice move into the hairpin from Juan Pablo Montoya. He's back up now into third place.
Yes, truly, clearly with some handling problem. Alonso dreaming he might overtake that Williams, not a prayer. He doesn't have enough straight line speed, and a little bit loose at the back end as well, the Renault. So Montoya will now, I think, comfortably pull away from there. That's probably good news in terms of us watching the race. He's 11 seconds adrift of the two Schumis in front of him, and I think Montoya can maybe start to do something about that now.
Why is he in third place? Well, he had a spin, for those of you just joining us, with 60 laps to go in this 70-lap Canadian Grand Prix. Montoya had a spin very early on, dropped him from second down to fifth. He's had to fight his way back ever since. He's passed Mark Webber. He's passed now Fernando Alonso. He's up into third place with a clear track in front of him. And I was just mentioning, just before that pass, David Coulthard. He's stuck behind the two Toyotas of D'Amata and Panis. They're circulating pretty much together in 6th and 7th places. He'll be hoping that they are going to come in for a pit stop quite early, but it won't be for at least another 5 or 10 laps. And Coulthard is having pain here, definitely.
Yeah, so truly spinning out there then. Looks like his traction control is not working, as you then cut to see Montoya taking over that third place. So a very bad corner and a bad lap for the Renault team. Here's the leaders then, over the line. 0.4 of a second is the difference. He's really halted Michael's charge now as Michael gets into the turbulent air. The air that passes over that Williams, and he's worked very hard to press the car into the ground in terms of downforce. It's very turbulent, very destructive air then as it comes off the back wing, and as it meets your front wing and you're following behind, it doesn't work as well. And look at Coulthard with a good run out of the last chicane. He's got the line into the next corner, and D'Amata is going to have to be last of the late breakers, and he's the first of the early breakers.
Nice move by David Coulthard. He's making progress here. We believe he's carrying more fuel than most of the front runners. McLaren have gone for quite a conservative strategy here, and Coulthard unfortunately lost ground with a big mistake as Jos Verstappen pits from 15th place in the Minardi. Coulthard lost half a second yesterday in qualifying due to a big mistake. Otherwise he might have been even more of a contender this afternoon, but he's definitely trying to make up ground in the Grand Prix. He's now up into 7th place and ready to attack Panis for 6th.
So the Minardi's on a 3-stopper. It may well explain why Wilson's so lively in the middle of the pack. Still running 10th, still going very well, it has to be said. Justin Wilson chasing the Villeneuve down for all he's worth. Schumacher M, 0.7 apart now. Montoya is closing them down slowly but surely. 3/4 tenths per lap. Montoya is beginning to catch the leaders as we watch David Coulthard take the long way round into turn 1. Better on the brakes and sees he's got enough space, just leaves enough in case D'Amata snatches a break and runs into him. Gave him a bit of a wide berth.
So on lap 13, Ralf Schumacher leading. You can see the margin for yourself over Michael Schumacher. Montoya 11 seconds behind. Alonso 4th, Webber 5th, 6th is Panis, and closing down on him is David Coulthard. Lap 15 in Montreal, and Jacques Villeneuve seems to be in trouble. His brakes seem to be going away from him. He's just dropped 5 or 6 places. He was at the front of this scrap here, which involves Heidfeld, Fisichella, Button and Raikkonen, the scrap for 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th places. And there you can see David Coulthard attacking Panis. That's the battle for 6th place. At the front, nothing changed. Still the 2 Schumacher brothers, nose to tail. Montoya, though, fastest man on the racetrack at the moment as Villeneuve dives into the pits. Montoya closing the gap slowly to the top 2.
Yes, we saw Villeneuve, even in turn 3, which is not a heavy braking corner, with glowing front discs. They haven't got, look, they're having to put fire extinguisher on it. You've got to do something to give him some more front brake cooling, and they're struggling to get those brake temperatures under control. And that's exactly what we were talking about on the grid and early in the race, because it's always heavy on brakes. There's high-speed straights, always into a big stop.
Yep, there are 2 points on this circuit. One of them is at the end of the long straight into the final chicane, where you hit 5 Gs momentarily on the braking. It really is enormous. You were up in that jet fighter pulling 7 Gs in a banked turn, which I'm sure must have had your stomach coming through to the back of your mouth. But 5 Gs on the braking is pretty hard work around here. This is the battle for the lead, though, going through some traffic. Minardi's in the mix there.
Panis has pitted in the Toyota, so the Toyota short-fueled as well. There he is. He was running 5th. That releases Coulthard. So the leaders are on lap 16. Panis is about to start lap 16. And look, they're finding their way through the back markers, through past the Minardi, and they're working the traffic well, the pair of them.
Kimi Raikkonen is up to 11th place, but the bad news for him is the margin to the leaders has doubled in the last 4 or 5 laps. He was within about 20-odd seconds of the front 2. Now he's 53 seconds behind the race leader. As we look at a replay of Trulli, who's had a hugely incident-filled race already.
Just looking
at another incident.
Yes, just looking out of the window, Michael misses the chicane. This is Montoya. He misses the chicane. And just a few seconds ago, Michael Schumacher missed the chicane there. That's why he's fallen back a little bit. As long as you don't lose or gain, as long as you don't gain a place by going through there, you get away with it. He should not be penalised. And also, he didn't really save a place by going through there. He just basically outbraked himself. But I think if they went charging through there every time, you find yourself half a second. Louise?
Yeah, I'm down in the BAR garage at the moment, as we just saw Jacques Villeneuve having all sorts of problems with his brakes. The team, as you can probably see, have just brought him in again. They're going to bring the car into the garage and have a further look at those brakes, see if they can correct that problem once and for all. But obviously, this is going to cost him a lot of time.
Yes, and continuing his bad luck at this racetrack. What's happened there is his brake fluid will have boiled. That heat dissipates into the caliper and into the fluid, and you get bubbles in there, and it takes forever to get that out. That's a big job to sort his brakes out. And you'd have to be wondering where Jenson Button stands as well. Similar car, you assume they've got their biggest brake ducts on them, so Button may well suffer the same problem later on.
D'Amata comes into the pits, thus confirming both Toyotas were running light on fuel. The Panis car had 16 laps worth, the D'Amata car had just 17 laps worth. And just looking at Jacques Villeneuve's race record here, it really is unfortunate. It's his home Grand Prix, and the only result he's ever had here was the first time he came here for Williams in '96 was second place. Since then, he's had 5 retirements and a 15th place. Not much to show from his home Grand Prix, and not today, once again emulating the feat of his great father. 25 years ago, Gilles Villeneuve winning here for Ferrari, the first time we raced here at the Ile de Notre Dame circuit. This is the battle for the lead then. Look at the gap. Montoya has been able to cut down 8.7 seconds now to Michael Schumacher. Montoya coming back into the mix.
Yes, he slightly was halted while he went through that traffic. We saw the two leaders going through, but he has brought the gap down from about 11 seconds to just under 9. So hopefully Montoya will come into play and make this a three-way fight later on. There's a Jaguar just gone across the chicane in front of me here outside the window. It was Pit Zonia, but he's running down in 17th. Remember, we saw him nosed into the barrier at the hairpin, and he had to stop for a new front nose on a new front wing on the car. Villeneuve, it's showing, has retired from the Grand Prix on the computer. He sat in the car in the garage. I wonder if they'll try and get him some brakes back.
Kimi Räikkönen comes into the top 10 then with the pit stop of D'Amata. Let's take another look at the start then, Martin. Not massively eventful. They went in. Michael Schumacher did get alongside Montoya though, didn't he?
Yes, he did indeed, didn't he? Montoya getting a bit brave on the brakes into turn 1. Michael Schumacher probably thinking of his World Championship chances, and behind them they were fanned out 2, 3 and 4 abreast out of your view there. It's really head-to-head at the front, isn't it? Montoya's just had a very poor lap, a 19.2. So where the leaders did a 16.9, he's lost 3 seconds, and the lead and his deficit is now back to 11 seconds. Ted?
Well, Martin, we've been saying that Michael should be able to go much longer than Ralf Schumacher, but I tell you, he's not going to be able to go that much longer as Williams actually come out for their stop. Ralph's been suffering with wear rates on his rear tyres, so they're going to have to try and adjust some of the pressures on his stop. That's coming up probably this lap or the next one.
It's exactly what Michael Schumacher wanted. He's getting good returns from his Bridgestone tyres here this afternoon. Yesterday in qualifying, as Heidfeld makes a stop, it was all about Michelin. But today, you've got to say that Fisichella, Button, they're all going strongly on the Bridgestone tyres, and so is Michael Schumacher. No doubt about it. And if Ralf Schumacher does have to make a stop imminently, that's exactly what Michael needed.
Yes, Ralph's just done a 16.6 for a new fastest lap, so it's Montoya then that's pitting first. As I said, his deficit was 11 seconds. He really could have done without that poor lap. Just one bad lap can spoil your whole afternoon, despite there being 70 of them. On the rev limiter, the speed limiter, that effectively turns into down the pit lane, and you coast into your garage of 21 men who are getting ready to change your wheels and tyres, top you up with fuel, and send you on your way. Nice wide pit lane here, and a solid stop for Williams.
Webber's also in for Jaguar, slightly earlier than we expected then. This is lap 20 of 70. And we've got a Jaguar of Webber. We've got Montoya's made a stop. So at the front, Ralf Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, Alonso yet to make their stops. Coulthard hasn't stopped. Neither has Fisichella or Button or Räikkönen. They're all the heavier cars going into this Grand Prix. Fisichella's starting to look quite handy, you know, Martin, in 6th place. Jordan always tend to put a fair bit of gas in their car, don't they? And he's in the mix. He's right in the mix here.
He is indeed. Räikkönen, unfortunately, has lost so much time as Ralf Schumacher, the leader, pits then and releases Michael Schumacher. This is working so well for Ferrari, and it's working well for Coulthard too. Ted?
Yes, Ralf Schumacher comes down the pit lane. I can only see rear tyres out for Ralf Schumacher. I can only assume that they're just going to change the rears. Let's see. Hits his marks very well. That's right. The fronts stay on. Those Michelins stay on. No problems with the refueling, so just the rears change. He prefers the balance that way. We said that he was having wear problems. 8.8, not a bad stop for the race leader.
Yes, and of course it's always the fuel that takes, well, providing they change the tyres properly, it's always the fuel that takes longer. So they're not saving any time with leaving the fronts on. They just don't want to go through that period where the Michelins tend to grain and understeer. So Ralf electing, obviously this is not a high tyre wear circuit, it's quite a low grip surface. It's the rears spinning up that wear out a little bit. The fronts don't work so hard here, and Ralf then electing to keep with what he knows.
Well, provided that was a scheduled stop, we certainly know that Ralf Schumacher took on about 60 kilos of fuel there in those 8.9 seconds that he was stationary for. That should get him about as far as lap 44 in this 70-lap race. Now, Ferrari are out in the pit lane. Is it going to be Michael Schumacher who moves past Ralf Furman and straight into the pit lane? Slick move there by Michael, and he comes a nice straight line into the pit lane. This is much earlier than we expected. Is it a tyre wear issue, I wonder? Or he hasn't really had the laps to capitalise on Ralf Schumacher coming in, so it's going to be touch and go to see which one of these two is going to be leading when Michael rejoins.
It's what you'd call a first in two-stopper, really, a short first in two-stopper, I should say. He should be away something in the 8s. If not, it's not a great stop. It's not a great stop because that clearly won't refuel him to the end, and somehow or other that didn't quite work out, that one.
So where's Ralf Schumacher? There he is, side by side, and it's done enough for Michael. He's not quite up to speed yet, but he's got enough to just do it. So that was remarkable by Ferrari. Michael Schumacher's in-lap must have been pretty competitive to have made that work, and Ralf Schumacher must have lost a little time on his out-lap because his pit stop was almost 2 seconds slower than the Williams drivers, and yet he's still rejoined in front. And that will be massively frustrating for Ralf.
Indeed, Ralf lost some time, as you said, the out and the in-lap Louise with Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, Jacques, obviously a brake issue for you. The team obviously hoped that they could correct it. Did you think that they would be able to?
No, I could feel there was a brake leak during driving. The pedal was just getting longer and longer during the brakes, and there before I came in the pits there was no rear brakes actually. I was doing all the braking on the front brakes, and at the end I just went to full travel, hit the metal with the pedal, and the car still wouldn't slow down, so it was time to come in.
Fernando Alonso leads the Grand Prix then on lap 22. Not the first time he's led a Grand Prix this season, this young man who's making such a big impression on us. We haven't really talked about him today. We haven't really seen him much today. But the Renault has quietly been getting on with business. As we can see, Giancarlo Fisichella, second Jordan retirement within a lap.
Yes, and I think again that could be brake problems because I'm sure I saw a little fire in Ralf Furman's brakes, but both Jordans out, as you rightly say, on the same lap. Montoya, just watched him come through here grazing the wall. He's really going for it, but he's down in 5th place at the moment because Alonso and 4th place man Coulthard have yet to stop.
Yeah, let's just give you a rundown then on lap 23 as the leaders carve their way through some back markers. Alonso leading by 2.9 seconds from Michael Schumacher. Third is Ralf Schumacher, right behind his brother as they've been together all race. Coulthard, the strategy is appearing to work for the McLaren driver. He was held up earlier on in the race by the Toyotas, but now he's looking quite strong in 4th. Montoya 5th, Button 6th. Raikkonen is up into 7th place.
Yes, not absolutely sure what that replay, and this is what I saw out the window. Montoya just grazing the wall, got away with it, but he didn't really hit it, he just sort of ran along it. Ted is down there with some information on Jordan.
Yeah, double disaster for Jordan. Both cars out of the race on the same lap. Giancarlo Fisichella was gear selection problems, trying to get his way away from the pit stop. The mechanics pushed him as far as Williams, but by then his brakes were frying and his clutch burnt out. They stopped it. He's back in his box. Let's see if they can try and fix it, try and get him back into the race, but I doubt it.
Yeah, this is what happens. Your brakes run about 750 to 800 degrees centigrade, and the moment you stop, it just heat soaks all the way back into the system and sets fire to itself on the face of the material or boils your brake fluid. You can't afford to be stationary for too long. And if you are stationary, you must not leave your foot on the brake, and that's what a lot of drivers forget.
What about this for pace? Fernando Alonso's last lap, a 1:16.823. He must be getting quite close to his own pit stop. Jenson Button pits from 8th place, and so he is in the BAR, the sole remaining BAR. What kind of brake issues does he have? They've taken the fuel hose away, but there's a problem with that car. No, it's finally got out. Some problem engaging possibly first gear, but he certainly lost 2 or 3 seconds of the tail end of that stop for some reason.
Well, we're in for a great duel, aren't we, between the Ferrari and the Williams, both going extremely well. It's working well too for McLaren now. Coulthard running very fast up in 5th. Raikkonen up into 6th now, running again also in the 1:17s. We know he's fueled for a one-stopper because he came into the pits and started the race from the pit lane with and put a lot of fuel on board. So it's McLaren are beginning to come into this race, but I don't think for race victory. Race victory is between these two, and if Montoya can get into the action. Coulthard pits now from 4th place.
Yep, Alonso of course still has to make his stop. He's only 5 seconds ahead of the Schumacher brothers battle, so he is effectively 20 seconds behind them once he's made his pit stop on the road, as that will work out shortly. Coulthard in then from 4th place. Montoya is then promoted into 4th. And how much fuel is the McLaren putting in? Well, it's a 2-stop strategy, no question about that. He will be back in again this afternoon.
Yes, I tell you what, this makes Alonso's qualifying performance look even better. He was P4 on the grid, and he's the last of the main runners to stop. But we do know, as I said yesterday in qualifying, that Renault, a bit down on power, but it's much better on fuel consumption. It enables them to go further into the race, and under these new regulations, James, that really is paying dividend.
Certainly is. Well, it's been an amazing turnaround in Spain. Ever since this guy exploded onto the scene at the beginning of this year, the viewing figures in Spain for Formula One have gone past motorcycle racing for the first time ever. Because Spanish riders have won in bikes for 20 or 30 years. They really have been eminent in that sport, but in Formula One, never. And now this year, it's been growing and growing and growing, and it's outstripped the audience for bike racing. That's how popular Fernando Alonso has become in Spain, and you can see why, can't you?
15 runners then. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened on Justin Wilson's pit stop, but it moved in behind teammate Verstappen. The 13th and 14th, Pizzonia bringing up the field. Alonso with a 5.9 second lead, but it's not a real lead because he has to pit.
Renault mechanics are out, we're being told, in the pit lane. Can't be for Jarno Trulli. He is no longer classified. We've lost Fisichella, Furman, Villeneuve and Frentzen from this Grand Prix. Trulli is in fact still going round in 16th place, so it could potentially be for him, but more likely on lap 26, Fernando Alonso, the race leader, will be coming in.
This is Coulthard exiting the pits, and he is going to be absolutely destroyed to find out he's just behind Barrichello, who has stopped once, but that was for a new nose cone. Barrichello obviously quite heavily loaded for fuel loaded in qualifying then, but also critically, Coulthard is behind Raikkonen, who's on a different race strategy altogether. Will McLaren swap those two around and release Coulthard because otherwise he's going to compromise his afternoon completely as the leader pits for his first scheduled stop of the afternoon, and a little bit of a front wing adjustment going in there too.
Leaving the front tyres on though, not an awful lot of grip, or tread I should say, left on those. Slightly mismatched the way it's worn. The left front tyre seems to have worn more than the right one.
Yeah, I don't know where they stand on that, because you've got to keep grooves on the tyres. And you could argue that that car is heading out without its full complement of 4 grooves, knowingly so. Michael Schumacher leads then from Ralf Schumacher, just a half a second in it. Montoya now 12.5 seconds adrift of the main scrap.
29 of 70 here at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit on the Ile de Notre Dame in Montreal. It's been an eventful Grand Prix, as it always is here. We've lost Trulli, Fisichella, Ralph Furman just a moment ago with an engine failure, Jacques Villeneuve with a brake problem, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. The battle is raging though at the front between Michael Schumacher, who now has the lead for Ferrari, having started third on the grid. Ralf Schumacher, who was on pole, has dropped down into second place. This is Juan Montoya. He was second in the early stages, spun down to fifth. He's fought his way back up now into third place. Fernando Alonso, who led briefly for Renault, is down to fourth. What about this though? Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren Mercedes started the race from the pit lane, now in fifth place and trying to minimise the damage that's going to be caused to his World Championship lead by having qualified so poorly yesterday. Michael Schumacher though sitting pretty at the top. Rubens Barrichello's sixth, David Coulthard seventh, and Mark Webber, the last of the points paying positions for Jaguar, in eighth.
So we have the Bridgestone-shod Ferrari with Michael Schumacher and the Michelin-shod BMW Williams with Ralf Schumacher, and there's absolutely nothing between the pair of them. We've seen each of them lead the Grand Prix, and neither can pull a margin on the other, and they're really giving it everything they've got out there, riding the curbs, leaping off. Michael there on two wheels at one point, I think, just trying to break away, make a gap, but it's not going to happen at the moment, I'm delighted to say. Montoya though, now 13 seconds adrift of this pair.
Well, I've been conducting my own straw poll up and down the paddock this weekend, talking to various engineers from the various teams, saying to them, give me an overview of this season, give me an overview of the balance of power at the front in Formula One. And what they've all pretty much agreed is that the Ferrari car still has quite a margin over the rest of the field. The Williams has got stronger. They've managed to work out the secrets of this new FW25. They've made it more competitive. And McLaren have made the most of last year's car whilst still waiting for their new one. What's keeping McLaren and Williams in it are the Michelin tyres. They do have an advantage at the moment over Bridgestone's. And you can see here today there's nothing in it whatever in terms of performance between Michael Schumacher's Ferrari and the Williams BMW of Ralf Schumacher. The tyres are keeping Ralph in it, the car is keeping Michael in it.
I have to say, Ralph's much better through the slower corners and in the braking zones, particularly the exit of the final chicane too. Michael's got the advantage down the straight at the moment. He's clearly taken a bit of wing off, or chosen to run in qualifying yesterday a little bit lighter on wing. Gives him a great chance this afternoon then of maintaining position in terms of not too many people passing him down the straights, and he can be wide in the corners, but at the moment he doesn't have to be because Ralph can't quite get on terms.
Kimi Raikkonen in fifth place at the moment, 14.5 seconds behind Fernando Alonso. He would dearly love to go away from here today with third or even fourth place if he could. Fifth at the moment, still not made his pit stop, Kimi Raikkonen, but he did put a huge amount of fuel in the car. Now that's last year's car, Martin, and David Coulthard got 50 laps into the Grand Prix last year with that car, so we're only on lap 31. Kimi can go a lot further yet as Pitsonia pits.
Pitsonia is running 15th and last at the moment. That's the sort of stops we've seen this afternoon, isn't it? Schumi 1 and Schumi 2 then. Imagine it's Father's Day. Imagine if you were Mr. Schumacher Senior seeing your two boys out there. I know what it's like when I watch my son Alex in a kart race, let alone seeing your two sons leading a Grand Prix. But of course, he's seen that several times before. These two really have had some good fights over the years. We've often wondered if Ralph yields a little bit too easily to his brother sometimes, but here they've had some ding-dongs, no doubt about it, and both driving beautifully.
How is Alex? Are these guys here, Alonso and Webber, got anything to fear in the near future?
We don't have to wait and see. There's a long way to go on that, but let's wait and see on that one. But Raikkonen's just done the middle fastest sector of anybody in the Grand Prix, and of course now he's beginning to get quite low on fuel. He's out of sync with the rest of the field on a one-stopper, so his fuel is falling away, and of course Barrichello, Coulthard and co have all been in and topped up. So this is the moment when Raikkonen can make the difference. And he took best part of a second and a half out of fourth place man Alonso on the previous lap.
Yeah, and of course the thing to remember here is that although Raikkonen does have to make another pit stop, so does everybody else. Most of the two stoppers came in sometime in the early 20s and they'll have to come in sometime in the mid to late 40s. Kimi Raikkonen we expect to come in around about the same time, anything from 47 through to 50 for the McLaren drivers. So effectively, this is an aggregate position that Raikkonen has nothing to fear, and as his fuel load burns off, he can attack Alonso. As Martin was just describing, that car, the McLaren, certainly is a quicker car at the moment than the Renault. It certainly should be with all the power it's got, and so Raikkonen has an opportunity here this afternoon.
It's all about damage limitation for Kimi Raikkonen. They've all got to stop one more time. Raikkonen's a half a minute away from the lead, but he can still, he's the quickest man on the racetrack at the moment, mind you. So 1:16.7 he's just done, very, very close to the fastest lap of anybody. So Raikkonen really on a charge.
Top 8 then on lap 33 as we approach half distance in Montreal. Awful lot still to happen here. Michael Schumacher leads Ralf Schumacher 0.6 of a second, as it's been all race. The two of them have been held together as if one of them was towing the other along through the race. Montoya 3rd, Alonso 4th, 5th is Raikkonen, 6th is Barrichello, 7th is David Coulthard, and 8th Mark Webber. Distance then in the Canadian Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher leads from his brother Ralph. That's the margin. They're just lapping the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld, currently running in 12th place. Montoya still 3rd, Alonso 4th. Look at this though, just a moment ago. Kimi Raikkonen, who had managed to get himself up into 5th place, a puncture. Second car we've seen, second Michelin car we've seen to shed the mid-carcass of its tyre, and that's cost him Martin. He's down in 10th place now.
Yes, but he's on the one stop, and look, he's lucky for two reasons. Because it was just before the pit entry that he lost that tyre. Barrichello just missed the tyre carcass poloing down the road. There's the end of the stop. It's 11.8 seconds. Touch and go whether they got enough fuel in that to get to the end of the Grand Prix. But also the flailing sidewalls did not damage the rear wing of Kimi Raikkonen's car. So very lucky, although I'm sure he had to pit somewhat earlier than he really wanted to. Ted.
Yes, Martin, but I do think they did get enough fuel in that to see Kimi Raikkonen to the end of the race. There would, of course, be some fuel still left in that tank because he had a good, well, 7 or 8 laps left until he had to come in. I was looking at that tyre when it came off, completely delaminated. It's difficult to know at the moment whether that was because it got a puncture or whether the tyre just collapsed of its own accord.
It's usually, when it does that, it's usually a puncture because it's running hot and the high speed, when you're doing over 200 miles an hour, just the centrifugal force keeps the tyre up. but it runs very, very hot, and it burns away the sidewalls where the carcass meets the sidewalls, and off we go. We have that loads of times at Le Mans, and it's a very scary thing. Suddenly it drops down in one corner, lifts the opposite corner off the ground. Barrichello is charging very hard now. Remember, he pitted early on for a new nose, where presumably, James, they really did tank him up, and he's pushing very hard indeed. He knows he's got to get some quick laps in now. Surely he'll be due for a pit stop soon.
Well, Martin mentioned Le Mans just there. News coming through from France today that Marc Blundell, our own Marc Blundell from F1 ITV, finishing second for Bentley, a 1-2 for Bentley after 70-odd years. The Bentley boys have won Le Mans. Tom Christensen's car winning the race. Marc Blundell, Johnny Herbert, David Braddon finishing second. Here's a man going away with nothing. Jacques Villeneuve changed into his civvies, and he walks disconsolately away with manager Craig Pollock. And once again, you've got to say the BAR team, a tale of two halves of the garage. Jenson Button's car, seemingly reliable, runs like a Swiss watch. Jacques Villeneuve's car seems to break down with alarming regularity. The team admitted themselves. Dave Richards, the team principal, said himself it's simply not good enough that Jacques' car keeps letting him down. People shouldn't judge him too harshly. We're not doing a good enough job. But it just keeps happening to him, Martin.
Here we see again, it does indeed. Here we see again, Ralf Schumacher's quicker under braking, better on turning. Michael's quicker down the straight. That's why they're so even Stevens.
Well, looking back at that tyre coming off of Kimi Raikkonen, we saw the same thing happening with Jarno Trulli. And it brings us back to something Ross Brawn was saying to Martin on the grid. We really are stepping into the unknown here. Very little dry running throughout the weekend. Nobody had any proper data, particularly for brakes and tyre wear. And, well, Villeneuve's fallen foul of the brakes. A couple of guys have fallen foul of the tyres. Who else might fall foul of them as the race goes on? Once again, Montoya looks like his right wing mirror is loose. Yeah, there it is, flailing around.
That's not too much of a drama as long as he's got the left one. And even then you can pretty much ignore what's going on behind you unless you're in a good scrap. But that would have passed through his cockpit, hopefully not into the air intake just above his head, passed away from the car. But look at these two Schumacher brothers, absolutely hammer and tongs at him. Montoya's brought the gap down to 11.6 seconds. There was a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix a while back by Rubens Barrichello, 1:16.3. They're still not matching last year's pace, James. I think it's because they've not been putting the rubber down on the racetrack this year. As we've seen, there's been so much wet running here, and a lot of other races with cars using much harder tyres in Formula 1, pulling up anything that they have managed to get down, and the track, therefore, not in prime condition in terms of speed.
Well, as we look at this engaging scrap between the two Schumacher brothers, it's been going on for the last 39 laps. Ralph led the first stint, Michael led after the pit stops. Even though his own pit stop was slightly slower in terms of stationary time than the Williams, he managed to rejoin ahead of his brother, who made a stop one lap later. Let me tell you a little bit about Kimi Raikkonen. Started from the pit lane here today, got himself as high as 5th place, had to drop down to 10th after we saw that tyre issue. He's now on the back of the two Toyotas of Panis and D'Amata. They are behind Mark Webber in the Jaguar, but if you bear in mind that Raikkonen doesn't have to stop again, and all the cars in front of him do, given that it takes 25 seconds to make a pit stop here in Montreal, he is aggregate. If he can get ahead of the two Toyotas, he might slot himself back in ahead of Barrichello in 5th place. That's what he's trying to do here this afternoon, get 4th or 5th place. If he can beat Alonso, so much the better. If he can beat Barrichello, that's the target. So Raikkonen, a big challenge, percentage driving here today for him.
Yeah, he's going to struggle though, James. He's well, he's way off, these 70 seconds off the lead, although, as you say, he doesn't have to stop again, but he's lapping down in the 1:18s now, so he's dropping another second a lap with a car that is so fat on fuel, and he is some 28 seconds behind Barrichello and going more slowly. Therefore, a pit stop doesn't take 28 seconds. So at the moment, it's not working well enough for Kimi Raikkonen. Montoya's got the gap down to 10 seconds now with a new fastest lap of 1:16.349. Here comes Barrichello passing and into the pit. So finally, Barrichello makes a fuel stop there. This is his second trip in. The first was for a nose where they obviously tanked him right up. And Rubens in the pits. He was 5th when he came in.
So let's see what this does for him. Coulthard was 11 seconds behind Barrichello. He will pass him then on the racetrack, as will Mark Webber. It'll be touch and go actually for Mark Webber. That looks a bit wobbly, that side, that barge board.
Yeah, that's That's what the ones we saw fall off, isn't it? Back in Australia on Michael Schumacher's car, I'd imagine maybe that got a little bit of damage when his nose broke and came underneath the car early in the Grand Prix.
There are the two Toyotas. So he has fallen behind Mark Webber, has Rubens Barrichello. He rejoins in 7th place. 2 Schumachers up front. Montoya, fastest man on the racetrack at the moment. That's the confirmation of it. A 1:16.3 his last lap. He's pegged the gap now to 10 seconds to the race leader. Alonso a further 11 behind Montoya. 27 behind Alonso is Coulthard. Webber is 10 behind Coulthard. And Barrichello is just behind the Jaguar, having rejoined from his 2nd stop of the afternoon.
Trying to see if Montoya's mirror is still wobbling around there, isn't it, somewhere? There's the 2 leaders then. Montoya's got the gap down to 9.4 seconds, so he's having another charge. I think the 2 Williams are the fastest 2 cars on the racetrack, without any doubt at the moment. If Ralph could get out of Michael's turbulent air, I really think he's got the faster car. He's so much better under braking and turn in. And you saw the brake disc there glowing amber as they heat up into the corner.
Well, they've got a calculation to do. They don't really want to bring Ralf Schumacher in and have him come out behind Fernando Alonso. Alonso currently in 4th place, and we know from the fact that he went long on his first stint that he probably will do again on his 2nd. You need, as I say, 25 seconds here to make a pit stop and rejoin ahead of the person who was behind you. And he's only got 21.4 at the moment over Alonso. It's not enough of a safety margin, because what Ralf Schumacher will want when he pits is clear air in front of him to try and attack Michael Schumacher if he can. This has been the story of the Canadian Grand Prix. I tend to agree with you though, Martin. I think the Williams is the faster car today.
I think it is. Somehow or other, on the out lap or the in lap, Ralph didn't do as good a job as Michael, and he ended up behind him because their pit stop, Ralph had the slightly faster pit stop by a few tenths. So something happened. You just need a bit of traffic, or you're too cautious, whatever, as Verstappen pits from P13. He's on a 3-stopper, we know, this afternoon.
Just a quick wipe of the visor, new set of boots, fuel going in. How much fuel is going in? No, I think they've switched it to a 2 maybe. That's quite a lot of gas that's gone in on lap 42 to take him the remaining 28 laps in this Grand Prix. So probably a switch there from Minardi onto a 2-stop strategy for Jos Verstappen as the race leaders go hammering down this straight. 205 miles an hour under the Casino Bridge.
I think it's more than that. I mean, they're doing 340 clicks. 320 is 200 miles an hour.
I beg your pardon, yeah, 330 is 205. It's more like 210 miles an hour. Speed.
And the fastest speed this afternoon is 348 kilometres per hour. That's what we used to see in Monza and Hockenheim on those super fast long straights with little skinny T-tray rear wings on them. So I told you about the tailwind as I was on the grid, and that's really giving them a helping hand down the long back straight beside the boating canal that you can't actually see on the TV screens, but tremendously high top speeds. And I think that's because they're making these cars so efficient through the air now.
Well, also, the wind must be the differing factor, because yesterday in qualifying, the fastest speed down that straight was 330 kilometres an hour, which is 205 miles an hour. So they're 18 kilometres an hour faster, just over 10 miles an hour faster down the straights today. Big wind, you can see it looking out of the window. It's rippling the lake, it's blowing the flags on the top of the Paddock Club. Here's a choice scrap then. The 2 Toyotas together, as they have been for most of the race. They've got a Minardi in the way of them. It's Jos Verstappen a lap down. Panis is 8th, D'Amata 9th.
I think Coulthard's got a problem. He's P5, but Coulthard is doing very slow laps at the moment. So we think there's an impending problem for David Coulthard as Panis pits from what was 8th place. Louise.
Yeah, just a little update for you on some of the retirees. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, first man out, he had a transmission failure. We've heard about Jacques Villeneuve's brake issue. Giancarlo Fisichella, as we suspected, that was a gear selection problem. Thurman, engine failure. Jarno Trulli, well, where to start with him? It's probably easier to tell you what didn't go wrong. But ultimately, the team brought him in after his second puncture, really because they weren't sure what caused them. So it was a safety measure.
Okay, thank you for that, Louise. As Louise was talking there, you saw that loose barge board James spotted in the pit stop coming off Barrichello's car. That'll hurt his handling a little bit. There it is, missing. And everybody managed to swerve around it, with the exception of Cristiano D'Amata, who hit it with the Toyota. And you can so easily pick up a puncture. The tyre's heavily loaded at 180 miles an hour. If you hit something hard, it doesn't have to be that sharp. can often damage your own tyre. So Barrichello then running at P7 at the moment, and Coulthard's done another slow lap too. He's back in the 1:20s now, 3-4 seconds adrift. So we don't know what his problem is, but he's not fast.
No, he certainly isn't. He's got Mark Webber bearing down on him now, the Jaguar driver. In fact, he's got past him. Webber up into 5th place, unseen by us. But Mark Webber has got past David Coulthard and is now in 5th place. So a problem for him. Problems also then for Rubens Barrichello. You can see that barge board is missing. Was it Australia when Michael Schumacher lost a barge board about early stages of the race? And he lost both of them, didn't he?
Lost both of them, didn't he? When he had a little trip across the grass and damaged the stays on them, damaged the support. So the two leaders then coming up. This will give Michael Schumacher a bit of a wry grin, won't it? Coming up to lap Kimi Raikkonen. And Raikkonen, with the blue flag situation, will just have to leap out of the way and say, after you, sir. Is the only option. There's a Minardi first, but Raikkonen lapping down in the 18s now. There's a Minardi just gone past and pitting. That'll be Wilson for what should be a scheduled stop. And look, this is Ralph then. The Minardi's between him and Michael at this stage. Next in line then is 9th place man Kimi Raikkonen to be lapped.
There's Wilson taking on the fuel. Raikkonen running wide at the hairpin to allow the two race leaders through. Ralf Schumacher doesn't seem to have got a very good drive out of the hairpin. He's lost quite a bit of time there to Michael Schumacher. Somehow it's going through the traffic there. Raikkonen pulls over to the left to allow Ralf Schumacher to through, and it's a hard knock for Kimi Raikkonen here this afternoon. He got himself up starting from the pit lane with a full tank of fuel. He got himself up as high as 5th place. Then he had that puncture, that tyre problem. It's dropped him down to 9th place.
And he just got passed by the Minardi coming out of the last corner. Raikkonen, I was going to say, you were talking at the time, Joe, he was so polite coming down that straight. He pulled over to the right, picked up all the rubbish off the racetrack, and when he got to the chicane, he could do nothing about it. This is 3rd place man Montoya. He was then 7.8 seconds adrift of the leaders. He's still got a chance of catching the Schumacher battle.
He's made his stop. We haven't had a safety car here. I mentioned at the top we've had 6 safety cars in the last 7 years here in Montreal. Amazingly, 46 laps in, no safety car incident. Let's hope we don't have one. But certainly something like that is really probably the only hope, I think, for Juan Montoya now, unless these two come across some kind of unexpected problem or get tangled into each other. Montoya has tried valiantly to make up for his mistake at the start, where he had a spin coming through the final corner. The first couple of laps dropped him from 2nd down to 5th. He's managed to fight his way back up again. He's currently running 4th behind Fernando Alonso. You can see, is it the wing mirror? Yes, it is the wing mirror, just bashing, as it has been for some time, on the side pod of that Williams. As 2nd place, Ralf Schumacher comes in the pits. This is lap 47. Ted, take us through it.
Okay, Ralf Schumacher comes down. Remember, Michael Schumacher fueled longer for this stint, so he can go on for another 4 laps. That's going to be critical in this fight. They're changing the rear tyres. They're not changing the front tyres, James, are they? No, those tyres will have been on for the entire race. That's incredible, because he didn't change them in the first stops. I hope they don't explode like the Michelins on Raikkonen's did.
Yes, well, low tyre wear here on the front. As long as you're not blocking them under braking, they will serve you well through the Grand Prix. But I tell you what, that was a bit nip and tuck with the fuel nozzle coming out and the car moving away. But that's what they've got to do this afternoon if they're going to win this race and leapfrog past Michael Schumacher. But this traffic is very bad news for Ralph, even though they've got to get out of the way with the blue flags. Hopefully the marshals will spot that. They'll be getting instruction from Charlie Whiting and Herbie Blash up there in race control. Now the blue flags are waving. The Toyota has got to get out of the way fast. But it's crucial. Ralph again having a poor outlap there.
And he has again fallen behind, as you can see now on your screens, Fernando Alonso in the Renault. So Alonso up into 2nd place, and he ran a much longer first stint than the Williams drivers. So a battle there for Ralf Schumacher if and when he catches in. Mark Webber from 5th place pitting. Coulthard then has been promoted. Webber's dropped back down to 7th. 8th place now. Kimi Raikkonen has got past Webber. Button has got past him as well. Mark Webber rejoins in 9th place, just outside the points. We haven't really talked, Martin, about Jenson Button today. Racing with a twinge in his back after that nasty shunt that he had at Monaco on the Saturday morning. Didn't race or qualify in Monaco. He was in a lot of pain yesterday for qualifying, but he's kept the car on the island, currently in a points-paying position in 8th place.
Yes, indeed. Webber's 9th, Mattis 10th, Panis 11th, and Heidfeld, Wilson, Verstappen. Pizzoni is still charging around at the back of the field, now 2 laps down. Ferrari then coming in shortly, and they're running together on the racetrack. And look, Ralph really had a very bad run. In fact, don't know which Williams there was in the background, had a bad run through the traffic. Michael with a lot of clear space. Barrichello getting out of the way. He's on a different race strategy, and Michael straight into the pit lane, but they can't afford to give away even half a second. Barrichello carrying on through the chicane, and the race leader in then. This is a crucial time, the last stop of the afternoon for a Schumacher brother.
Well, I told you it took 25 seconds to make a pit stop here in Montreal. That is exactly the margin, 25.2 seconds it was. Let's see who comes out on top then. Let's hope it's all tidy for Ferrari. It's a longish stop, bit of waving, bit of hand gesticulation. Where is the Renault? The Williams, there it is. Ralf Schumacher comes hammering down to turn 1. Michael Schumacher's got the straight run though into 1. It's not even going to be side by side this time. And Ferrari have done it again. Michael Schumacher has rejoined in the lead of this Grand Prix, to the enormous frustration once again of Ralf Schumacher. But when it counted on the in-laps and the out-laps of the 2 pit stop, Ralf Schumacher simply couldn't do enough. And we've got someone blown up on the main straight. Huge amounts of blue smoke on the run down the main straight across the start-finish line. And it's another Petronas Ferrari engine that's let go.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of those this year, haven't we? They didn't blow up much last year when they were in the back of the Ferrari, so something's wrong with the installation or the way that they're using those engines. Heidfeld out of the race then. He was stunning in the rain here, but not too spectacular in the dry. The yellow flags are waving. Ted is in the pits.
Yes, David Coulthard's been all over the place with his lap times. We're not quite sure what the problem is. It could be gearbox, could be engine, but whatever it is, I'm afraid to tell you, it's terminal. They've cleared the garage. They're going to retire David Coulthard within the next lap.
Yeah, Coulthard, you're absolutely right, Ted. Here he comes into the pit lane, just throwing the tear off away from his helmet. Coulthard looks like he's going to be retiring from this Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen has gone past him up into 6th place now. He's closing down Rubens Barrichello. Raikkonen 8 seconds behind the Ferrari driver. And, well, more misfortune for Coulthard. This championship is just not going his way.
No, I suspect it's not brakes. We'll have to wait and see. But if it is brakes, they shouldn't have put him in the garage, really, because they're going to catch fire. So I suspect it's engine or gearbox related. We'll have to wait and see. That's, of course, if they will actually tell us. Alonso leads the Grand Prix then for the 2nd time this afternoon, because he's yet to make his stop. He keeps stretching these tanks of fuel out rather nicely, and he's looking pretty good for a P4 this afternoon. Montoya now 5.7 seconds behind the 2 Schumacher brothers, so he is going to come into play towards the end of this Grand Prix.
He definitely is. What we need now is a Montoya charge. There's David Coulthard. Expression says it all. I mentioned that the points haven't really been going his way. He won the first Grand Prix this season, but since then he's not stepped up onto the podium. And it's just been 4th and 5ths for David Coulthard since his win in Australia. And he wanted to be a championship contender this season. His teammate Kimi Raikkonen at the moment is still leading the World Championship, but certainly if Michael Schumacher gets the 10 points he's fighting for this afternoon, it looks very much as though Michael Schumacher will lead the championship going away from here. A lot more races to come yet though here in Montreal. 20 more laps to go, and a 3-way fight for the win between Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya. And Kimi Raikkonen is going to be closing down Rubens Barrichello in a battle for 5th place fairly soon.
Yeah, so those 2 laps of course, Ralph. In the first stop, he obviously had a bad in or an out, and then we saw him get hooked up in traffic just before his 2nd stop. That's cost him a chance of victory this afternoon. I'm not quite sure if he's going to pass Michael where it's going to be. He's probably got to rely on back markers now to open him up a space. We don't normally expect to see Michael Schumacher making too many unforced errors, so Ralph's got his work cut out. But we do know he's got a better car under braking, so if he gets a sniff, surely Ralph can get through.
Nicely set up for the final stages. Juan Montoya on the last lap, a 2nd faster than Michael Schumacher and half a 2nd faster than teammate Ralph. Montoya is pushing. He's just 5 seconds now behind his teammate 5.7 seconds behind the race leader. Montoya coming into play, as he did here last year before his engine blew up. He was very much a contender for the win. This is shaping up very, very nicely indeed. Just quickly run you down a few others. Mark Webber at the moment on target for 2 points for Jaguar if he can hold on to 7th place. Cristiano De Mata has managed to get in front of teammate Olivier Panis in the Toyota. He's currently on for the final championship point in 8th place. Panis is 9th. Button is down to 10th. Wilson in 11th for Minardi. He'll be very, very pleased with that performance as the Ferrari there just sides past the slower car. Verstappen 12th and Pitsonia 13th, the last of the classified runners at the moment.
Yes, I think that was Wilson just going 2 laps down as the leaders pass through. They're still lapping in the 60. They've still not matched last year's 1:15.9 for a fastest lap, so the track still just gently rubbering in. It's not in optimum condition for very quick lap times. And look, once again, Ralph's so good in the slow corners. And Michael, you get that concertina effect in the slow corners, but Michael then with the straight line speed advantage, which we didn't really spot in qualifying, James. And
no,
because it wasn't there. That's
no,
right.
It wasn't there. That's exactly right. Looking at the speed trap times, Montoya fastest, as I said, 205 miles an hour. Michael Schumacher's only a couple of fractions slower than him, but still nothing like the kind of speed that we've seen here this afternoon. Fastest man on the racetrack, though, is this man, race leader for the 3rd time this afternoon, Fernando Alonso. Renault once again have surprised everybody with their strategy. It's not a winning strategy, but then he didn't start from a winning grid slot. He was 4th, and the moment running in at the front, but he will be mainly focused on trying to attack Juan Montoya. At the moment, it does look as though Fernando Alonso, once he's made his 2nd stop here this afternoon, will slot into 4th place, a safe 4th place, well ahead of Rubens Barrichello. But another strong day for Fernando Alonso.
He's a very handy kid, this one. You're going to be hearing a lot more about him into the future of Grand Prix racing. Solid performances, all types of racetracks. And now Montoya is just 3.8 seconds adrift as we've got another mirror hanging off the side of a Williams. So it's left-hand mirror for Ralph, right-hand mirror for Montoya. Alonso leads the Grand Prix, but will be stopping shortly. We'll be back.
15 to go here in Montreal. Fernando Alonso leads for Renault. He's 10 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, with Ralf Schumacher third. Alonso comes into the pit lane as if on cue as we follow him. This will drop him back down into 4th place. So Michael Schumacher will lead. Ralf Schumacher will be second. Juan Montoya will be third. And get this, Montoya has closed the gap down now to just 2.8 seconds on the race leader as Alonso makes his stop. Looks pretty routine, very tidy. Renault very, very good at pit stops. Look at that, 6.6. That's one of the quickest we've seen for a long, long time. So Alonso should slot back in, as he does, in front of Rubens Barrichello by quite a long way. Raikkonen is closing down on Barrichello in the battle for 5th place. Raikkonen's had a very eventful afternoon, started from the pit lane, got as high as 5th, had a puncture drop to 10th. He's fought his way back up into 6th place. Webber's still 7th and D'Amata is still 8th.
Crucially for Alonso, he just cleared that traffic because he was really flying before his pit stop, brought himself up, certainly with a chance of looking at the back of Montoya. But we're with DC in the pits.
Right, David, engine or perhaps gearbox we suspected. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it was gearbox. I lost 4th and 5th first of all, and it was okay to keep driving whilst I was in the points, but then I lost 7th gear, so then it's very difficult to drive like that.
How frustrating was today for you, both the race and what the result does for your championship hopes?
It's obviously not good. The actual race itself was encouraging because the pace was pretty good relative to those that I was around, and when I was running in clean air, good relative to the front runners as well. So again, it shows that we have the pace, but we just need obviously a better position in quality and reliability.
Bad luck.
That'll be galling for McLaren because they're keeping using the 17, the MP17, because they don't want to risk the reliability on the new, very, very new 18 at the moment. But the one thing they would have expected here is reliability. So bad news there, they lost 3 gears, it seems like. So Michael Schumacher half second ahead of Ralf Schumacher, then Montoya just 2.4, and we've got him in the picture now. And I tell you what, Alonso's not very far behind them either, considering the pace he was putting in before his pit stop. And if I was the Williams team manager, if Montoya cruises up to the back of these two, I'd be saying to Ralf, okay, let him through, let him have a go. You've not been able to do it so far we're on lap 57 at the moment. Let Montoya have a go at Michael, and if it doesn't work, we'll put you back in front of him again.
Well, that's good thinking, because certainly Michael Schumacher got in front of Ralf Schumacher on lap 21 when he made his first pit stop. And really, as you say, this is now 57 laps into the race. Ralf hasn't even had a go at him. He's followed him really around. Certainly looking at the pace Montoya's had in the car, and the Williams is the slightly faster package here this afternoon. So there is a chance possibly. And Montoya, with all that aggression, really getting right over to Michael Schumacher. He's put big moves on him in the past, but of course asking Ralf to move over and let Montoya through is one thing, achieving that is quite another. And we have had instances, particularly at Silverstone a couple of years ago, where Ralf just frankly said, no, I'm not going to do it, sorry. Team order's not really a part of the game at Williams, but today you do get the feeling they've got the quicker package. They'd love to go away from here with a win.
Yeah, Montoya's got the quickest car. He would have won this race without the spin, because I think he would have had the pace to leapfrog the pair that's in front of him in the pit stop somewhere. But if he can get up behind them, I mean, okay, he might be construed as team orders, but the brake's still glowing there through turn 8. And they're not, again, a regulation says you can't do that, but regulations are there to be broken, as we all know. And I don't really believe that is team orders in terms of affecting the World Championship. It's just team play, really. That's how I would definitely work this, providing Montoya can get there. 13 laps to go, including this one.
Well, I've been telling you all through the race about the progress of Kimi Raikkonen, and I was saying that he was closing out Rubens Barrichello. A couple of laps ago it was 8 seconds the margin. It's now down to 2.4. So we've got 2 massive scraps developing on the racetrack. The first one is for the late race lead and the win between Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya. There they are, front 3 all together, down in 5th place. Huge scrap going on, or about to start, between Rubens Barrichello and Kimi Raikkonen. So what an eventful Canadian Grand Prix once again as we ride on board with the Ferrari.
Montoya was 9/10 faster than his teammate on the previous lap, and that's why the gap is down to just over a second. You're leading the Grand Prix on the edge of your seat. You're heading down towards turn 8. It's a bit of a tunnel. It's a very wide bridge. Gives you the effect of being a small tunnel under there. It's bumpy. and in that shadow there, always just catches you out as you hit the brake pedal. Now you're P3 and you're looking at the two leaders, the two Schumacher brothers, and that's all you got to do is get past those two little dots to win this Grand Prix this afternoon. And he's just hooking nicely up to the back of them, isn't he?
Well, on his way over here, Montoya stopped off at Indianapolis and swapped cars with the great NASCAR champion Jeff Gordon, Californian driver who started out his career in single-seaters. They swapped cars, and Montoya was pretty quick in the NASCAR, but he was amazed how far before the corner he had to brake in the big truck, which is a NASCAR sports car. And he was also amazed by the performance of Jeff Gordon, who was only a second slower than Montoya around Indianapolis road course in last year's Williams. When asked to put it in perspective, Montoya said, well, I think you could say that there's a lot of kids on the fringes of Formula One in Formula 3000 and other series who couldn't have done what Gordon did there. That was a stunning performance. Nice bit of PR as well for both teams. Louise.
Down in the pit lane with Jenson Button, who just had to park his BAR. What was the problem?
I don't know exactly, but I lost gears. First of all, I lost fourth gear, then fifth and sixth, and then seventh gear. So there was no use going round into third gear, really.
How was your race up until then?
The first stint was a little bit hard because we were stuck in traffic, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. The car wasn't handling like I'd like it to. We had a huge amount of understeer in the low-speed corners, which is losing me a lot of time coming onto the straight, so it was impossible to pass anyone. But yeah, that's it really.
Cheers.
The reason they have a lot of transmission problems around here is they launch across the curbs and come back down to earth on full throttle with plenty of traction control. There's a tremendous strain through the transmission.
So, as we enter the final stages of the Canadian Grand Prix, it's all closing up nicely. Ralf Schumacher is right behind Michael Schumacher. Juan Montoya is closing them down. It's going to be a grandstand finish here. Lap 62 of this 70-lap Canadian Grand Prix. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. Well, I hope you're sitting on the edge of your seats because we're in for a really close finish. At the front, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya are separated by less than a second, the top three. You're looking at the battle for fifth place between Rubens Barrichello and Kimi Raikkonen. And Raikkonen has closed right up onto the back of Barrichello in the last few laps, and you can't help but think he's going to attack him. 8 to go here on the Ile de Notre Dame circuit. And Barrichello, remind you, has got a damaged car. He's lost one of the barge boards, aerodynamic devices on this car, so Raikkonen may well feel he's there for the taking.
Yes, and more than that even, the track is coming to the Michelins now, as the rubber's going down. We've got Michael Schumacher really under pressure from Ralph and Montoya, and Alonso's creeping up on the back of them, and comfortably the fastest man on the racetrack. Young Fernando Alonso, P4, but only 4.1 seconds off the lead. And of course, I think that's also then helping Raikkonen really put Barrichello under pressure. Raikkonen started from the pit lane. Barrichello stopped for an unscheduled change of front wing. Ted.
I've just been into the Williams garage, Martin. There have been no instructions on the radio to Montoya or to Ralf Schumacher about how they might play this with Michael. The engineers have been keeping Juan Pablo informed about the gaps to Michael and to Ralph, but I think their attitude is these guys are big boys, let them fight it out by themselves. By the way, he's had a race-long downshift problem. That's what they think contributed to that spin at the beginning.
Would surprise me because he spun in the middle of a corner. It looked like he came off the curbs unless he dropped it on the way in, but it didn't slow him down too much because he's now caught them back up anyway. And look at that, 1, 2, 3 in a line, and there then is the Minardi of Wilson. Well, it'd be a shame if he drops out. It'd be all 4 Brits out of the race. Justin Wilson was running 11th. Coulthard out, mechanical problems. Button out, mechanical problems, as was Furman. And it is confirmed down there, Justin Wilson sadly out of the race after a great drive. He was 15 seconds ahead of Verstappen at one point.
Yeah, he certainly was. He was in the top 10. Justin Wilson having started 18th on the grid. It was a lively start to the race. Ralf Schumacher from pole, Montoya alongside him. But Rubens Barrichello had some front wing damage. Pitsonia had a bit of an incident. Then Montoya spun at the chicane on lap 2, dropped him down into 5th place. And that's what's really cost him the win, as Martin was saying a few moments ago. Both Williams' trailing wings. Ralph's trailing his left-hand side wing. Montoya's trailing the right-hand side wing. We've had Trulli had many incidents. David Coulthard as well. He featured in the race, crawling up through the field after a poor qualifying performance. But the McLaren strategy today was very strong, put both its cars into good positions. Raikkonen starting from the pit lane got as high as 5th place. He then had a puncture, and that cost him any chance of getting 4th or better today. He's currently in 6th place, trying to pinch that place, 5th place off Rubens Barrichello. We've had a couple of tyres delaminate. We've had 1 or 2 spins. We've had all sorts of incidents. Just 12 cars, 11 cars I should say, still running on the racetrack.
I'd love to see Alonso getting amongst this lot. They're cruising around now. They're not really having a go. Not as hard as I thought they would be. And as you say, well, it's mirrors that are trailing off the Williams. Michael's got it under control at the front. And look, little Alonso just perusing up behind him, taking chunks out of them every lap. What can he do now? He's got the fair. He doesn't have the straight line speed to do anything, but he's certainly got the lap speed to worry the one mirror that's left on Montoya's car in the right position.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It's never truer than the Williams team, I think. Just one mirror to look out of. It's a fantastic spectacle. Looking out of the window here, the top 4 all flashing down the pit straight all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a Formula Ford race entering the closing stages. Who's going to have a go? Who's going to attack the car in front? As Martin says, the Renault is the one with the least straight line speed. Fernando Alonso at the tail there. He's giving away about 10, 12 miles an hour down the big long straight to the cars in front of him. He's going to have to do it on sneaky, isn't he? He's going to have to do it somewhere under braking. Just put his car in a position that says, I'm coming through. What are you going to do about it? Certainly he and Montoya, 2 of the most aggressive racing drivers in Formula 1 at the moment.
Good fights then with all 6. D'Amata's Toyota pulling out of the Grand Prix. D'Amata was running 8th, so he was in a points-paying position there. Luckily for that team, Panis was 9th, so he'll move into that point-scoring position.
Well, it's good news for Toyota. They're going to hopefully go away from here with something. I'm going to tell you what, if there's any problems with any of the front runners, you're going to have Verstappen in a Minardi getting a point here, because he's currently in 9th place, Jos Verstappen. So it's not over yet. Still got a few laps to go. Anything can happen here at Montreal. And if any of these 4 get amongst each other, who knows what might happen.
Come on, somebody, have a go. Alonso shaping up on the back of Montoya there, but nowhere near close enough to have a go. But he's certainly close enough to worry him. And Unfortunately, Montoya's just hunted them down. Now he's got there and he got into the turbulent air. He can't do anything with it. In fact, what I was saying, maybe they should have released him and let him have a go at the back of Michael, because it's too easy for Michael at the moment.
Yeah, pressure is the key. Michael's been soaking it up really ever since lap 21 when he took the lead of this Grand Prix after basically trailing his brother Ralph for the first 20 laps. Ralph made the first pit stop, but his in-lap for the pit stop and his out-lap from it was slower than his more experienced brother, who knows that he's won races in the past by being strong around the time of the pit stop. It wasn't just the mechanics who, in fact, on the Ferrari side, was slower in that stop than the Williams guys. It was what the drivers did that made the difference here today. And after the second stops, Michael still led the race. And at the moment, he is holding on to that position, looking as though he is going to leave here with the World Championship lead for the first time in the 2003 season. Kimi Raikkonen is set to get 3 points for 6th place at the moment, unless he can get past Barrichello and make that 4 points. But either way, it's going to be enough to hand the lead in the championship to Michael Schumacher. 3 to go. Nice onboard action as we've had all afternoon from Montoya. Rear facing now, looking back to Alonso in 4th place. Now facing forward, that's Ralf Schumacher in front of us, Michael Schumacher in the lead. That's how close it is.
Yeah, so Michael just edging away now. As he said, Raikkonen's led this World Championship since back in Malaysia on the 23rd of March. Surely he's going to lose it this afternoon now. Michael just pulling 7/10 of a second out on the pack. And it's stalemate, isn't it? Nobody can make a move at the moment. That's the trouble with these aerodynamics now on the car. You can't forget what you know. They can't suddenly forget all about how to make the aerodynamics good. It makes the cars supremely fast, makes them grip well. And they do take your breath away when you just see them coming towards you. And just see them turning into the corner, especially if you're live. And I hope you're buying your tickets for the British Grand Prix, because this championship is going to be oh so close all the way through the summer.
Yeah, and in fact Silverstone was mentioned today by Ron Dennis, the team principal of McLaren, as being the race at which we're likely to see the debut now of the new McLaren MP418. It's been testing in the hands of the race drivers. It's still a little bit fragile, but the feedback and the word on the street is that it's a very, very quick car indeed. And certainly they can't come soon enough for the McLaren team. Today, they're only going to score points with one car, Kimi Raikkonen. They're going to lose the lead in both championships. And they need the new car to come on stream as quick as possible. Silverstone, still a time away though. We've got Nürburgring and Magny-Cours between now and then. So Williams are coming to the fore. As you can see, they had the fastest car here this afternoon, but it's just the wiliness really, the craftiness and the skill, I suppose, of Michael Schumacher that kept his car and engine and tyre package in front of the superior on the day, Williams.
Yes, I think overall Williams will go home second and third, front row of the grid. They'll think, not bad, but I'm sure Frank and Patrick, they're winners, and they will feel they could have won today's Grand Prix.
They're closer than ever as they go across the start-finish line. We've got a very slow car. It's the Pitsonia's Jaguar just coasting along the start-finish line. And this is lap 70. And it's hard to see how anything's going to happen here. Final lap of the Grand Prix. Anybody going to have a bit of a Formula Ford moment, do you think?
I don't know where it's going to happen, that's the problem. Unless Alonso gets a much better run out of turn 9, he looks the only one most likely to at the moment in terms of having a go. But I don't think he's got the straight line speed to do it, and Montoya's not exactly scared of going wheel to wheel either. The mechanics are rushing across the pit lane, I can see out of the window here, and it's going to be yet another victory for the great Michael Schumacher. This will be number 68 if he can get it to the end of this lap.
Just a few more corners to go then into the hairpin for the final time. The gigantic crowd standing up applauding all 4 of these men who at various times have figured prominently in this Grand Prix. 3 of them have led it. Juan Montoya had a chance to win it but he had the spin very early on, which dropped him from second place. Here's Alonso's last chance, coming down the straight. He hasn't got the straight line speed, and through the chicane for the last time goes Michael Schumacher. He takes his 4th win of the season, his 6th victory here in Montreal, and it's really a Michael Schumacher day. You can see how much it means to him, because he knows he beat on the day a stronger car. As Martin said, his 68th Grand Prix victory, 49th for Ferrari. And for those of you who are statistically minded, we've got a very interesting thing in prospect now. He's just 1 point away from the magic 1,000 World Championship points in his career. And he's 1 win away from 50 with Ferrari. It's been a remarkable career for Michael Schumacher. It's still going strong. Here, though, is Rubens Barrichello, who seems to have dropped Kimi Raikkonen, who was right behind him at the end of the previous lap. Yeah, he's dropped back. He's a couple of seconds behind now in 6th place. So he loses his World Championship lead today to Michael Schumacher. And he will think as well about what might have been. He was fighting strongly before a puncture dropped him from 5th down to 10th. Rubens has struggled home in a car which is missing its barge board, as you can see on the left-hand side. But a terrific race, very, very close.
Yeah, so 5th for Barrichello, then Raikkonen is really taking it easy, but will take 6th place. Mark Webber will score 2 more World Championship points for 7th, and Panis will get his 1st point ever for Toyota in 8th.
Takes the lead of the World Championship.
Welcome back to Montreal, Canada, where Michael Schumacher has taken his 4th win of the season, and with it, the championship lead. He now has a 3-point margin over Kimi Raikkonen. It's a very sweet day for him and for the Ferrari team, who had a slow start to this season, but they had 3 wins in a row, and now after a little blip in Monaco, they're back in business at Montreal. It's been a super drive by Michael Schumacher, as I said before, very canny around the time of the pit stops. That he's beaten faster cars today in the form of Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, but personally, my hero of the day has got to be Fernando Alonso. He led it 3 times this race, and he was only 3 seconds behind at the finish. To you, who's your driver of the day?
I agree with you, Alonso, no doubt about it. Michael did a very professional job And I mean, this man's re-signed to the end of 2006. They went out and they started on the second row of the grid, won the race and won it well. Ralph will feel he should have won it. Didn't get through the traffic quite as well. Montoya spun off, threw his chances away. And Alonso, I think, in a car that has to be seen to be a slower car than the Ferrari in the Williams. Not by much, though. It's creeping up there. So I agree with you. Alonso doing a great job.
Yeah, misfortune today for Kimi Raikkonen. He's lost his championship lead, but he managed at least to scrabble up from starting from the pit lane to get 6th place here today, but could have been better for him. Jean Todt there, the sporting director of Ferrari. Well, we saw plenty of overtaking today, Martin, didn't we? But unfortunately, it just didn't quite happen in the end when the 4 of them were together. Nobody seemed to be able to have the heart or the car or the confidence to have an attack at the end.
Well, we've got 3 very fast cars in the top 4 there at the end. Great drivers. They don't make unforced errors. Very rarely you see Formula 1 drivers doing the equivalent, of a double fault, if you like. Occasionally we do, of course, but at this level, they're pretty handy. The cars are working so nicely now. We're halfway through the season. They're quite into their cars. They're nicely balanced, and that's why we didn't see any crucial errors later on, but there was certainly one early on, and I don't think that was a downshift problem. That was a problem in the middle of the corner, getting on the throttle pedal, probably coming off the curb a little bit too hard there for Montoya would be my guess, as that was where the crucial area where Michael Schumacher took the lead of the Grand Prix, then had a very fast in, out and pit stop, and this is where it happened then. That was the difference between first and second this afternoon.
Yeah, that all happened on lap 20 of this 70-lap Grand Prix. And from there, Michael Schumacher able to soak up the pressure from Ralf Schumacher, who never really had an attack. And now here he is on the podium. The characteristic jump from Michael Schumacher. Huge crowd of Ferrari support here.